Now, on Masters of Spin this morning, the literacy ad that may be a little bit too clever. To anyone who can't read, it looks like a movie trailer, except the text on the screen reveals facts about illiteracy in Australia.
How rough it can get. Now you have to survive on your own.
So, what is the point of a campaign to fix Australia's illiteracy rate if it's made for people who can read? Well, our Masters of Spin this morning are advertising and marketing experts, Matthew Bywater and Dee Madigan. Welcome to you both. Matt, I have to admit, I had to really concentrate when I was watching this to get through, because it's quite long as well. Is it too clever?
Perhaps, but you can remember this is not aimed at people who are illiterate. This is aimed at people. Sorry, this is aimed at people who have literacy and to raise more awareness. In that situation, I think it's quite creative. And you remember, by using a movie trailer type scenario with YouTube, it's a high search category, so it could get a lot of traction.
Okay, but Dee, I guess there's the argument that a campaign to raise awareness about literacy might be better targeted to those who actually can't read.
Or families and friends of those who can't read. I think where this, for me, loses it is it lacks any emotion. Yes, there's a hyperbole that without being able to read or write, your life could be a tragedy. But there's a very real way of showing that because, you know, in real life, not being able to read has incredibly emotive and powerful consequences. And I feel that that would have been a far, far better way to go than this, which seems to have been done. Great production values, you know, clever use of Google, of YouTube ads, but it is too clever for its own good. I think it misses the mark.
Yep, OK, moving on now. And to some change room antics that could become a police investigation. Richmond's coach was asked just that at a media conference yesterday over change room video that was broadcast live. It shows two of his players groping another player. Dee, it has been dismissed by some as old school behaviour, just locker room sort of antics. But really that's not tolerated these days, is it? Aside from the legalities, surely the players know that the cameras are everywhere. Is this acceptable, do you think?
No, I think the old, locker room behaviour should have disappeared a long time ago. Consent is consent. And you have to ask someone's consent before you grab their genitals, and they clearly don't. And I think it puts the people who, are being grabbed in a weird position because, if they arc up about it, they're saying, oh, mate, you're just one of the boys, one of the team. Like it's an insidious behaviour that has no place at all in today's society.
Yeah, it sure looked awkward. Matthew, Richmond issued an apology last night after the incident made TV news, but initially the club and the AFL wouldn't answer any questions about it. Surely they knew this was coming. They just should have been better prepared. They should have just owned up to it and dealt with it straight away, shouldn't they?
Correct, yeah. This is PR 101. And the old days of give it some air and let it play out, hopefully it'll go away. This doesn't happen. This is about bits and bytes. These things are shared virally on social media and they just go crazy. In the absence of a good narrative, you allow special interest groups to then hijack it and make it into something much worse than what it actually is. So they should jump on these things straight away.
Look, I guess the other thing about this is that, if we talk about that it's just locker room antics, but nobody wants to think that their child could be subjected to that, even when they're older, just not acceptable. All right, well, car maker Audi has apologised for an advertisement showing a young girl leaning on one of its cars while eating a banana. Matt, this is interesting. It's been slammed online over child safety on so many levels. It's saying that she's been over-sexualised, also saying that it's just plain dangerous. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is where people forget about other people's point of departure, which actually frames their worldview. Some people, and a lot of people would look at this and just think, they're trying to create a family-style commercial, which to me is crazy because it's a car that can go 280 kilometres an hour. So I don't get the advertising fit. But, you've got to take different people's perceptions in. And, for years and years, automobile advertisers have used racy sports cars, females, dare I say, phallic-looking symbols in commercials to try and sell sports cars. So they just didn't take all these things into consideration.
All right, and Dee, to finish up, courtesy of a gastroenterologist, he's running for Congress in the US. Take a look at this.
I'm Noel Collis. I approve this message, and it's time to give Washington a colonoscopy. Let's clean them out.
OK, that's one way to do it. Not the slickest of political ads, but, boy, it grabs your attention, doesn't it?
It does, and I do political ads, and half the battle is actually getting people's attention, and the usual bland, positive stuff doesn't tend to. Something like this absolutely gets people's attention. It makes them smile a little bit as well, which is a really nice way to do an essentially negative ad, and I full marks to this.
It made me squirm a little bit. All right, thank you, Dee. Thank you, Matthew.
Pleasure.
Ahead for you on Weekend Sunrise, the silver lining to lockdown, how more time at home is benefiting our relationships with our families.